Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. I am joined by my friend Josiah Aston today, and I am super excited to hear about all the dumb things he's done with money. Josiah is the owner and founder of Financial Hope Services, and his journey to becoming a financial coach started when he and his wife decided to change their legacy of their family tree. Josiah and his wife decided to become weird. They paid off car loans, credit cards, student loans, and even cash flowed an adoption and a pregnancy and started 2 new businesses. During this time, Josiah realized he wanted to help others gain financial freedom in their finances, and that's how he started Financial Hope Services. How are you, Josiah? So good to have you.
I am doing very well. Thank you. Good to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So before we get started, tell me a little bit about Financial Hope Services and what you do in your coaching practice.
Sure. So at Financial Hope Services, we help people to overcome the obstacles and the things that are keeping them from living in abundance and blessing. We want
Okay.
people to be able to make a difference in the world. And we know that many times we feel like we can't do that because it's just the finances just kind of seem to hold us back. We feel like we can never get ahead. We feel like we can never stop living paycheck to paycheck. And so I help people to overcome that.
Yeah, having flexibility in finances opens up a lot of doors, right? It opens up a lot of
Hmm.
windows for
Yeah.
people to give or to do things they never thought they'd be able to do before. Speaking of
Hmm.
which, tell me how you and your wife cash flowed an adoption. First of all, that's usually well, I don't want to say usually, that can be more expensive than going and having a baby at a hospital
Yeah.
yourself. So tell us about that.
Yeah. I mean, it was about $15,000 over the course of a number of years. It did take a little while. And when I say we cash flowed it, I mean we saved up. That we knew it was kind of things were coming along, and we did it just like we do everything else in our budget. We make sure to set aside the funds in a sinking fund for until we actually had to make the payments to the lawyer or to the adoption services company or whatever. And so yeah, it just made sure that we did not want to go into debt for it.
Mm.
And we did have to slow down sometimes the debt payment. But
Oh. So you guys
because we
were
were still
still
paying off
working
debt at
on,
the time.
yeah,
We were
you were,
still
that's
working. Yep.
interesting. You were still working on paying
Yes.
on your debt when that was
I'll
going
just
on.
I'll be completely upfront here. We're actually still working on some debt. So
Gotcha.
we have about 15,000 in student loans left. But we
Wow.
started with over 200 um, in debt total. So and it's taken longer than we wish it would have taken. But this is primarily on one income. And so it's just been a journey. Um, a great journey. We have learned and grown a lot through the process. I mean, in addition to the cash, the adoption and the pregnancy, we also, I mean, I went back to school and got
Wow.
an administrative credential. Um, so that was like another $7,000. I was actually working on a doctorate as well for a number of years during that time period. That was about $500 every 3 months or so.
Wow. Okay.
So,
So let's take a step
um,
back for a second because I think, if people are watching this for the first time or this is their first or just starting to learn about Dave Ramsey and the baby steps, Dave
mhm,
is very specific about
mhm,
paying off debt and then doing these things. The cool part about
mhm.
us being financial coaches is you and Dave have the same haircut, but last time I checked, you and me are both getting paid.
Right, right.
So
Yep.
we are not that guy up there over my shoulder staring at me all the time. We have more than
Mhm,
60 seconds to involve ourselves with our clients or our potential clients.
mhm.
So let's pretend Dave's not watching and let's talk about how you prioritized these things while still paying off the
Mhm.
$200,000 in debt. Where did we, so we had the $200,000 in debt. What was the first thing we said? Okay, we're still paying off debt, but we're going to cash flow X while we're doing this.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question because you're right. A lot of people kind of feel like they have to put their dreams on hold while they're paying off the debt, which I in some cases, I would say yes, right approach. And there are some situations though that as financial coaches we come across and I say, hey, this is not the norm. You've got a reason that you be doing this. Sometimes um,
Oh, Josiah, I think we lost your audio. It says your mic is not connected. Do you want to take those? See if we can take those headphones out because we definitely want to hear what you say about this. The joys of live technology, right? All right, let's see if we can unmute you now. All right, we're having a trouble getting Josiah. Oh,
you hear me now?
Yay! There we go. There we go. There we go. Awesome. Man, we are just destined to have audio issues this morning, aren't we? There we go. I think we got you now.
And I just had more audio issues. Has it working now?
Yes, you're good to go.
I
We can hear
lost
you
you.
now.
Hold on. I'm going to take these out and try one more
Okay.
time.
All right.
Okay, now, can you hear me now?
Nice. Beautiful.
All right.
All right,
Great.
so let's
Okay.
go back to where we were. We'll pretend that didn't even happen. We're paying off the $200,000 in debt.
Yes.
That would have been easy, right? $200,000 in debt, but we have these other things. I don't want to say other things going on. Life is going on, right? We're just, this is life, folks, right? So instead of taking Uncle Dave's approach and saying, sorry, Josiah, your family is going to have to be on hold. Your dreams for you and your wife are going to have to be on hold. Your educational dreams are going to be on hold. You've got to pay this $200,000 down. What did you guys prioritize, and in what order did you prioritize these things to say, we're going to stop paying on the debt so fast and put these things ahead of that?
Right. Yeah. So I was saying that as a financial coach, we often do have these situations where we know that we want to be able to pay off the debt, and I would advise many people to do that, to get all the debt paid off before they move forward with anything. But for us, we knew it was going to be a very long time, and we knew that in order to accelerate our income in a couple ways, and the adoption was something that we could not, and I'll explain that in a moment, was something we could not prevent or hold off on. So it was.
Yeah, Beverly agrees. Yeah. Dave would be on board.
I'm going to explain kind of our situation with the adoption was a little bit more nuanced here. It wasn't, a lot of times people will adopt because of infertility or because of, or whatever reasons. For us, my sister, it's actually my sister's child, and she was not in a very good place and was not going to be able to take care of the child as well, with where she was at in her life. And so we had about 3 months.
Wow.
We found out about the child, and we decided within a day or two or probably within a few hours, that we were like, okay, when this child comes, we're going to be willing to take it and help. And so we had kind of 3 months to kind of mentally prepare the house and so forth. And we didn't really know for sure if we were going to be needing to take the child, but we ended up, it came around, and we ended up doing temporary guardianship of her.
Okay.
And then we did not go through the adoption process until about a year in. I had given my sister some time to get her life together and so forth, but it didn't work out. So we ended up needing to kind of pursue the adoption process. And for us, it was a court issue. It was a court deal. So we had to go through a lot of court fees and so forth. So it was, like I said, it was about $15,000 when all was said and done. Now, what's great about adoption with the tax laws is that most of that we do receive in a tax credit.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. So even though this wasn't your, I don't want to say typical adoption, but I think in America, when people hear, oh, so-and-so adopted a child, they're expecting maybe they went through a Catholic charity situation. It's a
Mhm.
child from a third world country, or
Right.
a East Asian company or country or something like that. So that's kind of this was in the U.S. domestic adoption situation
Yeah.
within your family. So like
And
you
it
said, it was
wasn't
most
done through an
important.
adoption agency.
Okay,
It was done through the court system. So
gotcha.
yeah, it was a little bit different. We also, but you can get a tax credit. So we're actually just now getting those tax credits
Oh my God.
because we only finalized the adoption last year.
Okay.
And the way the tax laws work, you have to it's over a number of years that you get the credit.
Got it.
So
Okay. It's not an instant $15,000 tax
yeah,
return.
yeah. So, and I'm not probably best that we don't go into the numbers on that. But then the other one, like the doctorate, I had already been working on it
Okay.
before I started the get out of debt plan. And so I was like, well, I might as well finish it. Let's get this done. And
Yeah.
I was paying a lot less than I had initially paid, because you pay a lot more in a doctorate program when you're going through all the classes and everything. And I think I actually added student loans to
Mm,
that was part of my student loans, about $40,000 of student loans there.
gotcha.
Um, and so but you have you're going through it already, and then when you get to the dissertation phase and you're just working on the dissertation, it's a lot cheaper. You're just working with your dissertation chair, and you're only paying the classes. Instead of $2,000 a class, it was $500 a class, and I'm doing a class every 9 weeks or so. And then a little bit break in between. So it was like, I might as well finish it. Well, last year I ended up deciding that I wasn't going to finish it, so I did not get anything for that, except I did get a master's degree.
Okay.
That was another thing I had to cash flow, was I had to take a couple more classes last year to finish the master's, because I didn't take the doctorate, and I had to make sure all the credits were usable for the master's. So I do have 2 master's degrees now from that.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was so that was that situation. I mean, you can see the nuance there. The other
Right.
thing is, I was kind of moving in my teaching job. I was kind of getting restless. I did not want to continue teaching. And I thought, well, the logical next step is administration. And so
Gotcha.
I'm thinking I need to go. So I'm going to get my admin credential, and this will immediately increase my income once I get an
Mhm.
admin job to probably $15,000 or $20,000 more than what I was making. So I'm thinking, okay, well, that would be obviously worth, if I can get the job right away, that would be worth doing this program. And
Right.
$7,000 for the whole program was not a bad deal. I didn't feel like. So we saved up the money for that, and I went through the program.
Gotcha. Now
And then
let me pause on that right now,
yeah,
because 7,000 is not terrible for what you want to call a certificate or a credentialing program, right? I've
mhm,
worked with clients before where they've had either they or they maybe they have an adult child who would really dramatically improve their living situation, their financial situation, if
mhm,
they just were able to get this extra certificate. Um, what did you do specifically when you guys
mhm,
sat down and said, you know what, this admin add-on is a great idea, but it's $7,000? Did
mhm,
you stop paying extra on the debt? Did you stop going to
mhm.
restaurants? Like, give me a couple of examples of what you
Yeah,
guys specifically did to
well,
grow that
just
7,000 quickly.
with like, I have a client right now that's planning to move. She also has $300,000 in student loan debt. Obviously, the focus is the move to start. So she's going to pile up money
Okay.
to do the move, and then reallocate. Obviously, if there's any money left from that move that she had piled up, then she would start throwing that at the debt,
Mm-hmm.
and then start really focusing on that debt. But that's the same thing we did. Was we recognize, okay, we're going to try to accelerate in time the payoff of the debt. So we're going to go ahead and invest this $7,000. We're going to pile up the money that we were putting towards the debt. And I don't
Okay.
remember exactly how much it was at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but probably somewhere around $1,000 to $1,500 a month we were putting towards debt. And so we decided to go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and pile it up towards the admin credential instead.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Did
Then,
we take any lifestyle hits at this point? Did we cut down on the
well, I mean,
entertainment?
we've always, I mean, ever since we started this whole process, we've been trying to be very careful with our lifestyle. But we
Right.
did have some house moves in the process too. But that actually accelerated our debt payoff because we sold a house and were able to pay off the cars and a credit card.
Nice.
Then we bought another house, and we were very careful with how we spent on outfitting that new house.
Yeah. I
And
think
then,
when people hear that people are moving, and even for us as coaches, right, the instant reaction is that, oh my God, this is going to be expensive, right?
Mhm,
I moved apartments when I was still in San Diego. I
mhm,
switched apartments after about 13 months of living in one apartment
yeah,
because the new place, it was the new condo that I decided to rent was $1,000 a month cheaper. And so, yeah, of course, there's upfront costs with physically moving your things and down the road,
yeah,
and purchasing furniture that fits and stuff like that. But
mhm,
if you're cutting $1,000 out of your
yeah.
living expenses every single month, it was totally worth it.
We had no couch in our living room in this house for a little while.
Yeah. Same. I
So
literally had
we
like I
we
think
had lawn chairs out.
I had a sectional, and the only thing that fit in the new place because it was smaller was like a third of the sectional.
Yeah,
So it was like if you sat too far to the end, you'd fall off of it.
yeah. So, I
So
mean, you make sacrifices, and we did. But then we sold our second house, and we bought in a better place. But we were able to pay off some debt there too. The key is that when we did that is like you could take a lot of that money and be like, well, we should we invest it? Should we put it into a business? Because even at that time, we're like, well, we wanted to start a business, and
mm,
it's like, well, and we're thinking we needed money to do that. Well, you don't really need money to start a business. Most businesses, you just need to get in there and start doing it.
right.
But not much. But we did. So that we did pay. I'm going to accelerate some debt payoff with that. But of course, we're also trying to be very intentional with how we're paying off. But we did have to pause for those couple things. So
Sure.
we paused a little bit as well for a business. We actually started an online private school 2 or 3 years ago. I ended up deciding not to go into administration, to just step out of the public school system altogether, just because I was done. I'm done. Um,
Yeah.
but and so I did use the admin credential to help us. We started an online private school, a nonprofit, and we eventually. This is a long story, but we eventually merged it with our church. That wanted us
Wow.
to go to school, and so now there's somewhere around 60 students or so. My wife is running it primarily, so I'm not really. I've kind of stepped out. I helped to kind of get it all started, get moving, get everything kind of set up, and then I'm stepped out. So and I'm focused on the financial coaching at this point. But
That's awesome. I had no idea.
yeah,
It's so funny. You think you know somebody, right? So Josiah and I have known each other for a while now, but you don't ever know all the details.
yeah,
And so, all right. So all of these, I really love this conversation because, like I said, we get more than 60 seconds to talk to our clients. Dave has to
yeah.
rush them on and off the phone,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Got to keep the podcast moving.
Hmm.
But this is all of this is so important. You've done so many of these things that I'm sure you've paid off the debt faster than the average person. We've had the adoption, we've had the moves, we've had starting the small businesses, we got the credentials, all that stuff. We
Hmm.
started the business. So these are all good things. What was the dumb thing you did?
Okay, so I mean, in some way, you could say that some of that was that dumb? I don't think so.
Right.
So I tend to be someone who, especially younger, someone who wanted to take who was willing to take a lot of risk.
Oh,
Okay, so I was willing to, like, when I was single. Oh, if I lose the house, oh well. I mean, or if I mean, I might as well jump on it. If I go bankrupt, I'll just start over again.
wow.
So I'm much less like that now because my wife is very different, and so we've had to really. I've had to kind of shift the way I think and feel and so forth to kind of really make sure that we're working together on this,
You're
right?
that couple that goes
I,
into their financial advisor, and when the financial advisor says, "What's your tolerance for risk?"
give me the best, give me the biggest risk. I mean, I was a, I yeah. I mean, when you look at like as a young man, teenager and so forth, and you think, oh, teen drivers are pretty dangerous. Yeah, I was a dangerous driver. I
Oh
mean, you
my
could say.
gosh.
So, and I had a motorcycle, and I went way too fast on it sometimes, and so, but yeah, with finances, same thing. I had decided that I wanted to get into real estate investing.
Okay.
So I was going to a ton of real estate investing workshops. And I was putting money into some programs for that. And I should say some of that was a mistake as well. I can look at some programs that I bought and I never used.
Sure.
So I could say, and like wholesaling and stuff I was trying to get into, I spent probably a good amount of money on that. It was just kind of wasted in a way. But my first house was a flip. I bought it. It
Wow.
was an opportunity that came up and I did buy it with the intention of fixing it up and flipping it. And we did, and we made some money on it. But
Nice.
it was very difficult. So that was not, I would not recommend people do that unless they have that high risk tolerance and they're willing. And I wouldn't recommend they do it the way I did. I did it with zero down payment. Zero. Zero down payment. And it was a 203K loan, which means that you put the cost of the renovations into the loan. And I used a contractor instead of trying to do most of the work myself. Because of the way that loan is set up, you have to use a contractor for most of the work. So it was more expensive than I would have expected, and it was difficult. So
Gotcha.
I would not recommend that. But yeah, so that was one thing. But I think the dumbest thing I did was just it was an accumulation of so many little dumb things. Just not paying attention to my finances. I got into $20,000 of credit card debt. But I think the single most dumb thing that added to that credit card debt was getting into this multi-level marketing company. And I had gotten into a couple, probably 2 or 3 of them. And I come into this multi-level marketing company called My Video Talk at the time. And I'm thinking, oh, this is so great. I'm going to be able to help so many businesses and people with their video and email. I was supposed to put their video inside the email. And I thought that was so cool. And it wasn't something you could really do much at the time.
Right.
And now it's like, well, who doesn't? Everybody can do
Right.
it. But that was part of the problem with the company. It was just like this proprietary technology that nobody else had supposedly, but it was all, I mean, I think everybody was coming up with stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, so I jumped in, but I of course opted for the highest amount so I could also bring people in under me that we could and kind of get in this whole scheme of things. And I decided to pay for multiple family members. I think it was like 4 family members. I paid for all of them to be at the same rate that I was in. And I think it was like $1,200 a month.
Oh my gosh.
Done, or something like that. Or maybe it was, I can't remember. Maybe it was only 5 or 6. But when all was said and done, by the time I finally dropped out of that multi-level marketing company and decided to just cut my losses, I ended up in another $5,000 or $6,000 in credit card debt.
Oh my gosh.
So,
the multi-level marketing, I mean, these people know what they're doing, guys. This is why it's been around forever, right? Whether you want to call it a Ponzi scheme or give it some cute name, there's a reason people get absorbed into it. The same marketing techniques are used during timeshare sales. And they know that there's a certain percentage of people who come to the timeshare thing just to get the free hotel nights and they'll never buy. But they also know that there's a percentage of people that will buy. And that's why they invest so much money and make these things so big and so pretty and so enticing, because they know if they just get that small percentage, they will make money off of it.
And I am blessed to have my wife, because I would actually buy those timeshares. I think I would have at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my parents have a timeshare, which they love and they enjoy right now. But yeah.
And you know what? I actually am not opposed to timeshares if they are being utilized. It's the fact that the majority of people you and me see in our coaching practices, if they have a timeshare, they're never there anyway.
Yeah.
And what are we paying all this money for? And the maintenance fees are constantly going up. And I can't imagine what they look like for the last 2 years of no one using them during COVID. So if you could go back in time to this multi-level marketing meeting, or, what would you do differently?
So I would, I think I would change my philosophy in general I was very idealistic. Like I said, a risk taker. I was thinking, oh, well, worst case, I would lose everything. I just start over. I mean, I figured I had such a belief that I could just figure things out and just do it and just go for it. And I probably still do have some of that. But anyway, I think if I was going to go back and try to fix it or do things differently, I would definitely not get into those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I would try to figure out what my strengths were. I would figure out what I was really good at, and I would really focus on that. And I feel like my life has always been kind of a journey of figuring out self-discovery, right? Figuring out yourself. I love personal growth, and I still love it. And that's my financial coaching is in some way a way of allowing that personal growth to be something I can share with others. So
Yeah.
it's still part of what I do, what I love. But if I would have really kind of taken some time to get some wise counsel on it, if I would have talked to my dad about it, because he was not into those kinds of things. I actually asked him about it probably pretty recently. And I said, "Why'd you let us get into all that stuff?" And he said, I just kind of stepped back and said, "Hey, you guys are going to do what you're going to do."
Yeah.
Because
we have to
because
make our own mistakes, right?
yeah, but I wish I would have taken a little bit more time to talk to him about the possibilities and the downfalls, the pitfalls, and the whether this is really going to happen. And I mean, and I wish I would have also never take on someone else's responsibility. I mean, if I would have just gotten in for myself, that's one thing. But when
Mm-hmm.
I paid for multiple family members and even someone who was not in my family to be a part of this and to be under my stream, and so we could all just kind of make money is the
Right.
idea. Um, that was taking on too much. I would not have ever done that, and I would not
Okay.
recommend anybody do that. Don't pay for someone else's investment. You let them
Yeah.
invest in it if they want to do it. They want to invest in it, let them do it. But that's not you should not be doing that.
Exactly. I find with our coaching that it's an ongoing self-improvement process for us,
Mhm.
which is kind of
Yep.
cool. So if you
Yeah.
are your self-development, self-improvement, growth junkie, try to become a coach because
Yep.
you will find that you improve constantly depending on what
I've
type
read
of
some
client you're working
amazing
with.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm reading amazing books. I mean, just because of the journey that I'm on as a coach, trying to become a better coach, you get into so many different resources and books
Yeah.
and you just have you're right. It's a constant growth process.
I am actually on a book freeze. I have been on a self-imposed self-help book freeze, probably going on about a year and a half now. There are books on the shelf behind me that are not going anywhere. Right, we've got Dave's Total Money Makeover. We've got Profit First. We've got Boundaries. We've got we got our basics on there. But I'm on a self-imposed self-help book spending spree for the time being.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I use library most of the time. I mean, a lot of times I use Libby app. I don't know if you've heard of that,
Oh,
but
yeah. No,
yeah,
I had to get to a place where I didn't have a pile anymore, whether it was a
yeah.
digital pile or a physical pile, or I was taking a book out of the library, like in San Diego. I remember taking a book out of the library and being like,
Yeah.
this is due to be returned and I haven't even opened it yet.
Right,
So
right.
the pile had to be shrunken down a little
Yep.
bit. So that's where I'm at right now. But if
Yeah.
you, what's one book you'd recommend if somebody wants to, just self-help in general, not necessarily financial services or anything like that?
Okay. A couple books that I've read recently that were really, really good for starting the process of thinking beyond where you're at now
Mm.
would be Dream Big by Bob Goff
Oh, yes.
and Believe Bigger by Marshawn Evans Daniels.
I've heard of this. I've read the first one. I've heard of the second one. Haven't read the second one.
And I found both of those very inspiring.
Awesome. Well, Josiah, your entire story is quite inspiring. I
Yeah.
think this was a really good deep dive into what life can look like, even with $200,000 in debt, even with
Mhm.
$300,000 in student loan debt. I have a new client. She's about at 185 of student loan debt. And
Mhm.
so on the verge of making some big life decisions. So
Yeah.
we don't always have to come to a screeching halt to throw everything at the debt if there are other things that we can prioritize. I think that's a really good lesson from today.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I would agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me, and thank you for being open and honest and vulnerable about the dumbest thing you've ever done with your money. Sorry about the tech issues we had, guys. It was happening before, and it was just destined to seep into the episode today.
Yeah. Glad we figured it out. Thank you so much for bringing me on. This was a great conversation.
Yes, and if you guys, I saw a bunch of people jump in a little late. If you missed the first half of our conversation, check out the replay on YouTube. It'll be up by tomorrow morning. And be sure to tune in next week for the next episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. Thanks again, Josiah.
Thank you.